Hi, my name's Miriam. At Thanksgiving dinner, my father called me nothing but a burden. Then he told me to pack my things and kicked me out of the house. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I sat in a folding chair, in a dress that didn't match, with food I couldn't eat, watching my brother take credit for my work. And all I could think was, how long had they been planning to erase me? Wait until you hear what I said next. And why it made the whole room go quiet. Let me know if you'd like a 10-second or 30-second version too. The Maris estate looked the same as every Thanksgiving. Trimmed hedges, floodlights hitting the front columns just right, and the same damn wreath hung too high on the oak door. I stood outside for a second longer than I should have, straightened my coat, and told myself it was just dinner. Nothing more, just a chair at a table. Marletta opened the door before I could knock. "Miriam," she said with a rehearsed smile. "We weren't sure you'd make it." That was her version of a greeting. I followed her inside. The foyer gleamed, smelled faintly of lemon wax and roasted sweet potatoes. Everyone else was already gathered. Laughter floated through the air, clink of glasses, silverware tapping on china. There was a name tag waiting for me. Handwritten, my name misspelled. Marletta handed it over casually. "Someone forgot to print yours. Hope that's all right." I didn't answer, just pinned it on and walked in. They led me to the end of the table, next to the swinging kitchen door. My chair, plastic, folding, stood out against the row of matching carved mahogany. A child's booster seat looked sturdier. I glanced toward Weldon. He was halfway through his toast, already 2 whiskeys deep, holding court with his deep voice and deeper ego. He didn't notice me, or maybe he did, and chose not to. Creighton caught my eye from across the table, said nothing. I sat, balanced my napkin, paper, not cloth, on my lap and smiled like it didn't matter. The napkins on everyone else's plates were embroidered, folded into little dove shapes. I was staring at mine, trying to flatten it out, when Tully leaned in and said, "Still working on that. What is it now, digital toolkit thing?" I nodded. "Still refining the framework." He chuckled. "Sounds like a fun little side hustle." I didn't bother correcting him. Lark, my niece, pointed to my chair and asked, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Why doesn't Aunt Miriam get a real seat?" The silence hit sharper than her words. Marletta let out a breathy laugh. "Oh, sweetie, Aunt Miriam doesn't mind, do you?" I did, but I smiled. I always smiled. The food kept coming, dishes passed around, hands reaching across me like I wasn't there. I tried once to add to a story, something about the old family cabin, and was waved off mid-sentence by Weldon. "Let the ones who remember it tell it," he said. A few nodded. I chewed my tongue. Then it happened. Uncle Ray said something offhand about my cousin skipping dinner this year. I murmured, "She probably just needed the space. Holidays aren't easy for everyone." Weldon's voice cut through the room. "This is why no one takes you seriously." I looked at him. "Because I don't rehearse my lines?" You could hear a fork drop. Maybe someone did. He put down his glass, looked straight at me. "You've always been a burden. Don't start now." My chest went cold before my cheeks did. No one spoke. No one moved. I felt the eyes, the panic behind tight smiles. One cousin nudged the salt toward me like an offering. I stared at it, didn't touch it. I couldn't tell you how long I sat there. But in my mind, I was 5 again, being told I was too sensitive, too loud, too dramatic. I'd been told that for decades, and I believed it. I believed all of it, because they said it with love, didn't they? But burden, that word, that was new. That wasn't love. I didn't stand up. I didn't yell. I leaned back in the chair no one else wanted and let the quiet do what it always does. Protect them. Lark leaned over. I saved something for you, she whispered. It's in my room. I blinked. She looked serious. Her little hand squeezed my wrist. Across the table, Weldon had already shifted the conversation to the stock market. I took a bite of turkey. It was dry, hard to swallow. If being a burden meant I was hard to carry, then maybe it was time to stop letting them hold me. I stayed seated, not because I had anything left to say, because I knew they were watching, not to comfort, but to see if I'd break. Weldon went on like he hadn't just thrown a punch with a smile. The whiskey glass returned to his hand, his voice back in host mode, talking politics, markets, the usual parade of power plays masked as stories. A woman I hadn't seen in years leaned over. "You look lovely, Miriam," she said, then added, "You clean up nice, finally." I nodded, smiled. Under the table, my napkin was wrinkled, damp at the edges from where I'd been squeezing it. My fingers left little creases like fault lines. The loudest silences are those that happen between family to keep the dinner going. Tully stood to announce a surprise. "We've prepared something special, memories of the Morris family over the years." The room dimmed. A screen lit up. Slideshow. First, a photo from the 4th of July BBQ 2 summers ago. Everyone smiling, sparklers in hand. Not me. Then the Christmas gala, everyone in silver. I'd been there. I remembered tying bows on the chairs. Not in the photo. Dozens more. Charity events, birthday dinners, ribbon cuttings. And in none of them, not one frame, was I standing with them. I wasn't forgotten. I was excluded. The realization came slow, then all at once. I'd been holding the camera most of those times. A kid a few seats down whispered to their mom, "Where's Aunt Miriam?" "She must have been late those years," the mother replied, brushing off the question. I smiled, not out of amusement, out of understanding. When people don't see you, they rewrite you out. Dinner resumed. Plates rolled in, steam and salt and sweet glazes. I have a soy allergy. I've had it since I was 12. Everyone at that table knew that. Hell, Marletta once said she'd memorized the family's medical quirks better than her own shoe size. Every entree had soy in it, some buried in sauces, others mixed right in. I was offered a salad, undressed, and water. Marletta, not missing a beat, said, "We didn't think you'd be staying long, darling." No apology, just expectation wrapped in charm. I didn't eat. I watched them pass plates, laugh, refill wine glasses. Seconds, thirds. Tully scraped his plate clean and asked if dessert was early this year. My stomach growled, not from the lack of food, but from the hunger to belong. They don't forget what could kill you. They just don't care. The conversation shifted. Funny family stories. Oh, they had a few. Weldon told the one about Tully backing the car into the mailbox. Marletta remembered Creighton locking himself in the shed as a kid. Even my cousin Beth got a nod for her disastrous homemade sangria incident. I was there for most of those stories, but I wasn't in the telling of them. One tale came up, something about a water balloon fight that supposedly happened without me. I remembered handing out the balloons. I spoke, gently. I remember it differently. Weldon, without looking at me, said, "Well, memory's a funny thing, especially when you weren't really involved." Laughter, not loud, just enough to say, "Stay in your lane." Tully chuckled. Marletta pretended to smooth a napkin that didn't need smoothing. Creighton stared at his plate. It wasn't that I didn't exist, it was that my presence was inconvenient. I glanced over at Lark. She shifted in her seat, uncomfortable. Her small fingers clutched her fork like she wanted to say something, but didn't. The moment passed, as they always did. The laughter died down, plates cleared again. Lark leaned toward me, soft. I found something in the attic last summer, she said. I looked at her. What kind of something? Her voice barely a breath. Something that proves you were there too. It's not just your name they've tried to erase, it's your presence. After the slideshow ended and the lights came back up, people moved through the room like nothing had landed. The tension had settled into the floorboards, into the way no one made direct eye contact with me. I stood, quietly cleared the dessert plates near my end of the table. It wasn't my job, but I needed a reason to move. As I passed into the next room, a woman in a jewel-toned jacket stopped me. "Excuse me," she said gently, tilting her head. "Could you tell me where the restroom is?" I blinked, unsure if she was joking. "I don't work here," I said. Her eyes widened just a touch. "Oh, God, I'm so sorry. I just assumed, with the way you were moving around." Behind me, I heard Tully's voice, sharp as ever. "Well, she does know this place better than anyone." No one corrected him. Marletta waved the woman toward the dessert station, smiling like a pageant queen. I didn't argue, didn't explain. I just turned and walked out of the room. A few minutes later, during the gift exchange, I stood by the mantel, arms crossed. I watched as Lark opened a gift wrapped in paper I recognized. Pale blue, with tiny pressed violets. I'd spent 2 hours finding it. Inside was a custom stationery set. The quote on top, "Your voice is not too loud. You're just not in the wrong room." I'd chosen that line for her because she'd once whispered to me she felt invisible, just like I used to. Everyone clapped. And that, the host said brightly, was from Tully's lovely wife. The smile froze on my face. I looked to Lark. She beamed at the wrong person. Of course she did. I said nothing. Let the moment happen. Swallowed my name like it didn't belong on the gift tag I had written and tucked beneath the ribbon. They don't just ignore me. They repurpose me. Later, Marletta found me by the stairs, pulled me aside like it was some kind of friendly intervention. "Just a quick word," she said, placing a hand lightly on my elbow. She smiled like she always did, her voice soft, measured. "Try not to take things too personally tonight, dear. You know how these events go. We can't keep track of every name tag or napkin." Her eyes locked onto mine. "You're so generous, Miriam. That's why we love you. Don't ruin that with moodiness." I didn't answer right away. Just watched her lips move like she was reciting a script. There was no apology in her voice, only correction. I nodded, politely, took a half step back before she could finish her thought. Sometimes, silence is the most efficient form of protest. Some apologies are just veiled threats to behave. I wandered into the hallway by the side entrance, the one with the family photos. Most were staged, matching outfits, stiff grins, generational pride. I stared at one taken after a charity event from years ago. I remembered that day. I'd planned most of it. In the photo, I was barely visible. Off to the left, slightly out of frame, holding a clipboard, Tully was in the center, smiling, shaking hands with a city official. The engraved plaque on the frame said, "Tully Maris, project founder." That's when my stomach turned. It wasn't just memory that excluded me. It was intention. Lark appeared beside me, quiet like she always was when things got uncomfortable. "I found something else," she said. "Upstairs, in the attic. You should see it before they throw it away." My voice barely rose above a whisper. "Then let's go before someone locks it." She nodded, and we moved toward the servant staircase behind the kitchen. It creaked under our feet, the kind of sound that warns people like us we're somewhere we shouldn't be. Halfway up, I stopped and looked down at the first floor fading beneath us. I wasn't afraid. If they think I'm the help, then I may as well do what help always does: clean house. If there's a story buried in that attic, I'm done letting them tell it without me. They dimmed the lights in the west drawing room. A murmur passed through the guests as Weldon stood near the podium, smiling like a man used to being listened to. "We'd like to share something special this year," he said. "A milestone for the Maris Foundation." Chairs shifted. Tully nodded to the tech guy in the back. A projector hummed to life. The first slide came up, a campaign I knew by heart, because I'd written every word of it. Digital expansion, community outreach, brand repositioning, Marletta read aloud. Vision led by Tully Maris. People clapped. I didn't move. The second slide showed a graphic I designed. The slogan beneath it, mine. It was written in the same font I'd picked for our social push. Slide after slide rolled by. Photos, designs, timelines, quotes, all of them pieces I had built over 6 months in my small apartment, all credited to Tully, and no one looked confused. No one looked surprised. They weren't lying. They were rehearsed. The slide transitioned to a group photo. Me, blurred on the far right. The caption read, Support Team, Volunteer Assistance. My name, third down the list. Flashback hit fast. Me leading Zoom calls, writing grant applications, logging 60-hour weeks, and here I was, erased, but politely. If they can rewrite me here, I whispered, where else have they done it? I looked at Lark. She was still, but her little hand slid into mine and held tight. The lights came back on. The crowd clapped again. Tully made his way through the guests, shaking hands like a politician. I didn't go near him, but I listened. Didn't know Tully was so tech-savvy, someone whispered. I always thought his sister was the one with the digital background, someone else replied. A woman I vaguely recognized from a fundraiser turned to me. You help with the email list, right? I built the entire automation system, I said flat. But yes, I sent emails. She smiled awkwardly and stepped away. The room felt smaller. My breathing went tight around the edges, but I didn't run. I watched, cataloged, collected. Later, near the back hallway, I found Tully refilling his glass. Did you forget to mention I co-wrote that entire campaign? I asked. He looked at me without flinching. It tested better with one face. Yours muddies the message. My jaw clenched. So erasing me was strategic? No, he said. It was efficient. You're not just selfish, I said. You're surgical. He sipped his drink. We've always had to course-correct your contributions. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I took out my phone and noted the time, just in case. Back in the main room, Weldon stood again. We'd like to end tonight by honoring Tully with the Foundation's Legacy Builder Award. The applause roared. Laughter, clinking glasses, camera flashes. I didn't clap, didn't blink. I leaned to Lark. Do you still have the thing from the attic? I asked. She nodded. Then it's time someone remembered how this story really began. The party had thinned out. People were lingering in corners now, nursing drinks, trading leftovers for gossip. I walked back toward the lounge to grab my coat. Halfway there, I caught pieces of a conversation just inside the door. She missed the memo again. A man laughed. Classic Miriam. Another voice chimed in, low and warm, like they were trying to be kind. She does love being different. I didn't step in, just stood there in my navy blue dress while the rest of them blended in like matching wallpaper, emerald green and beige, right down to the shoes. I hadn't known there was a dress code. They'd sent it through the group chat, the one I'd been accidentally left out of again. Weldon chuckled somewhere in the room. I didn't explain. I didn't ask why. The joke is always on you when you weren't invited to the planning meeting. I turned around, couldn't stand another second under those lights. The study was dark, quiet. I went there instead. Told myself I was just grabbing my scarf from the coat closet, but the truth was, I needed a second alone. The desk had a folder open. Someone had left it half shoved under a notepad, rushed or careless, or both. I saw my father's handwriting on the tab. Property transfer, Maris estate adjustments. I didn't hesitate. Inside were notarized documents, legal ones, dated months back. I skimmed fast at first, then slow when I saw my name. It used to be there, listed as contingent beneficiary. Now it was crossed out, scribbled through in pen. Weldon and Tully were listed as sole estate managers. No surprise. But the clause, exclusion based on instability and long-term detachment from family objectives. I laughed out loud. Once. Sharp. Not because it was funny, because it was clean, precise, efficient, like everything Weldon did. My hand trembled as I took out my phone and snapped a photo of the page. They didn't just remove my chair. They rewrote my legal presence out of the family. I sat on the edge of the desk, thought about all the ways this could have been hidden forever, and how easily I could have walked past it. Miriam. Lark stood at the door, holding something close to her chest. Her face was serious in a way 11-year-olds shouldn't have to be. I brought it down from the attic. Thought you'd want it now. She handed me a binder, dusty, thick, familiar. My handwriting on the spine. Inside were old project notes, the original blueprint for the Maris Community Hub, the one they'd said was too naive, too idealistic. Weldon's handwriting ran through the margins in red ink. Notes like, too sentimental, remove. Let Tully take lead. My ideas, stripped and restitched. They said you were just dreaming, Lark said, but you were designing. I looked at her. They feared what I could build without their name on it. Later, in the hallway, I found Marletta near the bar, alone. Her glass was half full. Her face was unreadable. You knew, I said. She didn't pretend not to understand. You saw them take me off the estate, I added, and you let it happen. She exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding that breath since dinner started. Your father did what he had to do. You always made things complicated. Because I wouldn't disappear? No, she said softly. Because you refused to obey the shape they carved for you. Her voice changed then, cold and clipped. Now you have a choice. Make peace, or be cut off completely. I held her gaze. My voice didn't shake. That already happened. You just didn't see it. I walked away before she could say anything else. Back in the main room, I moved differently. Not careful, not cautious. I sat on the edge of the couch, opened my phone, and flipped to the photos of the legal document. This time, I wouldn't just be the one who remembered. I'd be the one who recorded. If they edited me out of the legacy, I'll make my own version permanent. The guests had gone. Only the hushed hum of staff clearing glasses remained, mixed with the low tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway. I stood by the coat rack, retrieving my scarf when Weldon came around the corner. He didn't stop walking, didn't even look at me. You've caused enough disruption for one night. We won't do this again. I didn't flinch. I didn't say a word. That's the difference between silence and exposure. He paused at the door, hand on the frame. Calm, almost bored. Pack your things. You're no longer welcome here. No one was watching. No audience left to impress. This wasn't theater. This was exile. My coat and bag. Can I get those, or are they family property too? He didn't turn around. Leave what doesn't belong to you. I didn't answer. I walked past the entry, through the front doors, and into the cold. The kind of cold that lives in your bones, not your skin. I had no coat, no bag. Just a phone in my pocket and that tightness in my throat that didn't ask for permission. At the bottom of the stone steps, I stopped. Tully passed me with a drink in hand, eyes forward like I was invisible. Marletta stood behind the glass door, hand resting on the handle. She met my gaze, just for a second. Then she turned and pulled the door shut. I stood there, half numb, half awake in a new way. The driveway stretched out like a bad idea, slick with frost. I wasn't sure if I was crying or if the wind was just cutting too hard. Either way, my eyes stung. They didn't just kick me out of a house, they evicted me from my history. I dug out my phone. Battery, 2%. No charger, no bag, no backup. I opened the ride app anyway, fingers stiff. It spun and spun, searching, then black screen, dead. I stood still. No traffic, no sound except for the distant hum of a generator and the rustle of oak leaves. Miriam? I turned. There she was. Lark, hair messy, coat too big, sneakers untied, carrying a brown paper bag and something glowing faintly in her palm. I saw them about to shred it earlier this week, she said, handing me the USB drive, so I grabbed it. The bag crinkled. Inside, papers, folded up in a rush. I recognized the layout, my project plans, scribbled margins in my handwriting. One of them still had a coffee stain from the night I stayed up writing it. Lark bit her lip. I know you were the one who made it. I didn't want it to disappear. I knelt down, hugged her tight, cold hands on cold shoulders. Hope doesn't come from justice. It comes from someone still believing you were there. I walked the rest of the way into town, ducked into a corner park with an old bench near a flickering street lamp, the kind of place that didn't ask questions, sat down, opened the papers. Every page had my name, my notes, edits in pink pen, my sticky notes still attached. Later that night, I found a coffee shop open late. A kid at the counter lent me a charger and a laptop. I plugged in the USB. My project opened, line by line. The original version, clear, structured, backed by data. Time-stamped months before Tully's version went live. There was a folder I hadn't named. Inside, email chains. Weldon forwarding my work to Tully. Subject line, make this yours. The grief that had been boiling for hours, it cooled. What replaced it wasn't rage, it was purpose. They were careful with their stories, but I was meticulous with my drafts. I took screenshots, uploaded backups to cloud storage, sent copies to my old mentor, Clem. I didn't need revenge, I needed record-keeping. I closed the laptop, pulled my scarf tighter. Then I scrolled through old contacts and called someone I hadn't spoken to in 5 years. They thought they cut me off, I said, when they answered. All they did was give me something to start with. The next morning, I sat at the public library next to a vending machine that kept coughing out half-stuck candy bars. I hadn't slept, just stared at the USB Lark gave me until the sun made it too absurd not to act. I plugged it in. No warning, no encryption, just folders. Inside were timelines, pitch decks, budget drafts, scanned strategy notes. Each file had my name in the metadata. Creator, Miriam Maris. Modified, long before Tully had his big reveal. I clicked one video. It was me, practicing the pitch from my old bedroom. My voice, my script, my slides behind me on the wall, half printed and taped like puzzle pieces. I leaned back, not crying, not shaking. They didn't just steal my work, I muttered. They erased my proof of effort. I screenshotted everything, uploaded it to a secure cloud folder, sent backups to 2 emails, mine and one I hadn't used in years. The paper trail they feared, they left it in the hands of the one person who knew how to keep quiet. I called Clem Hawthorne from a payphone outside the library. He didn't ask how I was. He asked what I had. I told him. He was silent for a beat. Then, send me the top 3 files. Timeline, signatures, and the pitch. I sent them. You've got a legal case, he said finally. But more than that, you've got a cultural one. We met at a co-working space he used downtown. He brought someone from a nonprofit legal group, a woman in her 40s with a voice like a judge and eyes like a flashlight. I was hesitant, not scared, just aware of how these things snowball. Clem leaned in. "We're not going to war with your family. We're just going to make it clear. They're no longer in charge of your legacy." We drafted a statement, not a declaration of war, just correction, truth, quiet but undeniable. At the end, I added the same line that opened my campaign deck. Impact belongs to those who build it. That night, in the back corner of a digital cafe, I put everything in motion, scheduled a media drop for the following evening. Just 3 documents, 1 clip, and 1 sentence. This isn't retaliation. This is rectification. The post would go live exactly halfway through the Maris Foundation fundraiser. I uploaded the files into a shared read-only folder, emailed 2 journalists who covered legacy families and quiet scandals in the region. I practiced walking into the event, not as a guest, as a witness. The next day, I chose my outfit carefully. It mirrored the original Maris campaign palette, forest green, slate gray. Except this time, I wasn't dressing for approval. I was reclaiming the colors I created. The messages started trickling in around noon. Tully heard someone was asking questions about authorship. Weldon received an anonymous email. "Your legacy is about to be audited by its author." Marletta called me, twice. And I let it ring. The family group chat pinged like a fire alarm. I wasn't in it, but someone forwarded the highlights. What is she trying to pull? Is this about Thanksgiving? She's not going to ruin this for all of us. I sat in a corner cafe downtown, watching the screen light up, then fade. Lark texted me one line. "You're doing it. You're making them see." I wasn't out to shame them. I was just done letting them publish lies in my voice. That night I took a long walk. Ended up across the street from the Maris estate, far enough to blend into shadow. No one saw me. I didn't need them to. I looked at the lights inside, the party prep, the servers setting out folded napkins that matched a theme I'd invented. They always taught me to stay quiet. They forgot to teach me what happens when I stop. Tomorrow, the silence breaks, and I won't be the one who has to speak first. I walked into that ballroom like it still belonged to me, not because I wanted it to, because I had earned it. The same green and gray color scheme I'd pitched years ago lined the walls, the banners, the name tags. I hadn't been invited. Didn't need to be. Marletta stood near the entrance greeting donors like a politician at a church bake sale. Tully stood near the stage, surrounded by cameras, half posing for a documentary that hadn't even been greenlit yet. I didn't stop to greet them. I didn't meet eyes. I moved past the catering trays, past a server who looked too young to be that tired. Found the tech table in the back where the live stream was being prepped. Quietly, I plugged in my drive. No one noticed. They were too busy adjusting spotlights for the next lie. I didn't come to ruin anything. I came to return what they left buried. The program began. Soft music, intro video, a few too long speeches. Then the live stream went live. A comment popped up within the first 30 seconds. Wasn't this campaign originally Miriam's? The name beside it was familiar. Jessup, the activist who'd worked on community reform bills downstate. At first, no one reacted. Then, more comments followed. Dozens. She built the back end. She was the face until they replaced her. Where's her name on the slides? The moderator tried to turn off the stream chat, but it was too late. Someone screen recorded it, posted it to their story. A local reporter slipped out the side door, already dialing a number. Tully kept talking. Marletta scanned the room, jaw tight. Weldon, seated up front, didn't move. Lark stood beside me. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then softly, "They can't delete you now." Tully finished his speech. A wave of applause followed. Some stood. I didn't. I stepped forward, climbed the 3 steps to the stage like I was walking into a kitchen to turn off a burner someone forgot. The mic let out a squeal when I connected my drive. The first slide appeared, my project timeline. Each version of the deck, time-stamped, annotated. "My name is Miriam Maris," I said, "and I was told I was too unstable to be trusted with legacy." I clicked to the next slide. File transfer emails from Weldon to Tully. Subject line, "Make this yours." More gasps now. Not loud, but sharp. I didn't raise my voice. "I'm not here to accuse anyone. I'm here to correct the record." The final slide was a photo of my pitch notes from 2 years ago. My signature in the corner. Legacy isn't passed down, it's authored. The room sat still. Weldon stood. "Ladies and gentlemen, let's not." He was interrupted. One of the board members raised a hand. "Mr. Maris, we'll speak afterward." Marletta grabbed Tully's wrist and whispered something that didn't look polite. Journalists began moving toward the front. A tech scrambled to cut the stream, but the clip had already been posted, re-uploaded, looped with captions. Someone clapped, a woman in the 3rd row, then another, then more. I stepped off stage. I didn't need the room to cheer. I needed the silence to mean something this time. Outside, the air was colder than I expected. I hadn't brought a coat. I didn't need one. My phone buzzed. A message from Clem. "We're ready for phase 2, if you want it." Before I could type a response, there was a knock on the side door of the venue. A man stood there, one of the older estate staff. He held a file folder in his hands. "There's something you haven't seen yet," he said. They didn't just lie, they left tracks. And someone else followed them. The morning after, I woke to sunlight creeping across the kitchen tiles in my apartment. It hit the floor without ceremony. No spotlight, no speech, just warmth. I hadn't realized how long it had been since light felt like that. I didn't check my phone at first. I made coffee the slow way. Watched the water boil. When I finally opened the screen, it was there. Dozens of notifications, news clips, emails, texts. Heir exposes legacy fraud. Truth behind the Maris name. Some praised me. Others called it betrayal. I didn't respond. Weldon? Silent. Not a single statement. Tully? A vague release. "We all remember differently." Clem had texted me too. "We don't need to respond. Let the dust settle." He was right. I wasn't trying to destroy them. I was trying to reclaim myself. A few days later, I walked through the community center again. This time, not as a guest, but with keys in my hand. I'd started showing up every day. Teaching workshops. Small ones at first. How to document workplace injustice. Email trails that matter. Simple stuff. Real stuff. People came. Women who'd been pushed out of nonprofits. Workers from union disputes. Even some college kids who weren't sure how to say no yet. Lark visited during a session. Watched from the back. Said afterward, "You sound like someone I wish I could learn from in school." I smiled. "You did. You just didn't know you were my teacher too." She grinned. We hung up a quote on the wall near the front door. "Silence is only golden when it's not the cost of your name." A week later, I added something beneath it. My nameplate. Miriam Maris, founder of Truthcraft Collective. At a community dinner a month later, a little girl pointed to a wall of photos donated by families. One picture caught her eye, an old Maris family gathering. I wasn't in it. "Why aren't you in this one?" she asked. I crouched down to her level and said, "Because sometimes people make choices about who to include." She tilted her head. "Were you adopted?" I laughed, really laughed, not the polite kind. "In some ways, I adopted myself. There was a time that question stung like a knife. Now it landed soft. Not belonging doesn't mean you're lost. Sometimes it means you're just no longer misfiled. Weeks passed. Then came a letter, an official one, not an apology, a legal update. My name reinstated as co-founder of the Maris Foundation. Quietly, strategically, a paper trail, cleaned up for the press. There was a note suggesting amicable resolution for the sake of reputation. I recorded a voice message and sent it through legal. I don't need my name back in a line they tried to erase. I just need it to be seen elsewhere. I didn't press charges, but I did insist they implement a transparency policy, public documentation, credit audits, something that would outlive me. Marletta sent one final text. I hope you find peace. I deleted it without replying. Some doors don't need to be slammed, they just need to stay closed. Healing isn't revenge, it's refusing to need what broke you. 3 months later, I stepped into the lobby of a nonprofit summit in Atlanta. I'd been asked to speak, panel on power dynamics and record keeping. Before I reached the registration desk, I saw her, young, maybe 22, crying softly near the restroom. I walked over, sat on the bench beside her, didn't ask questions right away, offered her a bottle of water. After a moment, she said, "They told me I'm too emotional to lead." I smiled. "So was I said. Then I led anyway. And just like that, I knew my story wasn't over. It was multiplying.